Oh,
I
Mike.
know. That was so sudden.
All of a sudden, the red light went on, and I said, "Oh, we are live." It's
One
Mikey and
minute,
Vinnie, a little
what?
late this morning, but
Yeah, we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden we're live. That's hardly fair. That's catching us unawares.
that's how it goes, Mikey. I mean, things in life catch you unaware.
I
And
got
the
two
next
things
thing
to
you
discuss.
know,
I got two things to discuss with you, New York Vinny, today in Seattle, Washington, that we talk to every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
yes, Michael Knight in Pasadena, California, that we have been doing this now for boy, more years than we want to count, to rave reception. We're award winning.
More years than we run KJR, probably.
Yeah, I think so at this point.
Well, it has to do with the inevitability of sports. The Giants fired their manager, Gabe Kapler, over the weekend, on Friday, actually. And they said that they did it because when the Giants were a game and a half out of first place and enjoying their resurgence, enjoying their chase for the pennant, instead of playing their best baseball, which was required, they ended up playing their worst baseball. And that is something that the entire organization takes personally and says that's not the way we do it. That's not the way we conduct business here in San Francisco. Not as the San Francisco Giants. You were challenged with the biggest challenge of the season, and you responded with the biggest failure of the season. And that applies not just to the Giants, but it applies to the New York Jets of last night's game, who came from behind, tied the game, and then instead of playing their best football to win the game, they played their worst football and lost the game. And that means that the entire organization, not just the quarterback, has to answer for it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the Jets, I mean, the politically correct thing to do last night was to talk about how the Jets came back and that the quarterback had, wasn't expected to do anything. And that nobody wants to go play with the Jets, and that's what their problem is, that they can't get a free agent quarterback to come in that looks any good. Um, Oddly enough, both the Jets and the Mets find themselves in somewhat the same boat this year as they go out and they get high priced talent and bring them in and get nothing out of them. As a matter of fact, the Mariners too. With Robbie Ray, the former Cy Young Award winner, who injured himself early on in the season and was unavailable to them for the season.
And
Um,
how did he injure himself? Arm?
his arm has some kind of
Yeah.
problem with his arm.
Imagine that, a pitcher with a sore arm.
Yeah, imagine that. And that's the part of the game that is the biggest unknown, is who is going to hurt themselves during a season. You could go out and sign a gazillion free agents, but if they hurt themselves or something happens, now in the Jets' case, is that the entire problem? No, that game was eminently winnable for them last night.
They could have won it.
They could have won it, and they did two things. They, number one, let a quarterback run up the gut on him. And granted, he's a good quarterback. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Mahomes, but they didn't have to lose that game.
And think of all the drop passes. Think of all the balls that hit him in the hands, but were not received.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets should have won that game. Now, is it the coach's fault? Is it the quality control coach's fault? They got jobbed on a play on that. What was it? The pass interference play, wasn't it?
Yep.
They got jobbed on that.
At
It
least the
clearly
coach. At least the coach got 15 yards for saying a thing
right,
or two.
and he was properly and rightly so frustrated. That was a ticky tack call. That was a superstar call. That was a call that, when you have a team assembled of superstars, you give them that call. When you have a team assembled of schlubs, or not yet superstars like the Jets do, you don't get that call. 3 years down the road, they probably get that call. But be that as it may, you got to give the Jets a little bit of credit because they did come back last night. They just made bonehead mistakes, and that shouldn't have been. Aaron Rodgers not being there was not the cause of that loss last night.
No, it was just like when the ball hits you in their hands. That's a good indication that you should have caught it.
Right, and when your defense lets the quarterback on what was it, 3rd down and 18. And when you let the quarterback run up the gut,
for 20,
right up the middle, for what was it, 22 yards he ran for, or something like that, untouched. Yeah,
hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous. And as far as the Giants and the Mariners and the Mets, for that matter, because the Mets made it into the news yesterday by firing Buck Showalter after 2 years.
So who gets Bob Melvin is the question in the offseason.
Well,
theoretically, that is, he's still part of the Padres organization.
Yeah, is he the guy? I don't know that he's going to go anywhere, to be honest with you. I don't know who the next hot manager is. To be honest with you, I mean, there's nobody that I'm looking at and saying, geez, I mean, the guy I want now is the guy in Baltimore. Who assembled a kind of a ragtag team there and won 100 games.
And they look great.
The guy I want is Bruce Bochy.
I'll take
who
Bruce
again
Bochy.
Took a team that had obvious faults in it, and made the playoffs.
And had some hardships along the way. It wasn't a gimme.
Right. But at least what you saw in San Francisco is they said goodbye to Gabe Kapler. It's you didn't you had 1 year, you didn't do it right. Goodbye. In Buck Showalter's case, you had 2 years. Both years, the first year, you collapsed in August. The second year, you decided to get it over with early.
Well, Kapler had 3 years. His first year, they won 103 games.
Right.
And then they lost. And then they were a 500 team. And then they were an under 500 team. They said, we seem to be going in the wrong direction here.
Now, what's the Mariners' excuse? The Mariners have Scott Service here. He's been here.
They lost track of the shiny object.
Yeah, which is leading to a lot of people saying that the Mariners don't care about winning. That the Mariners could have made moves in the offseason. Now, I will argue with that. They made some moves, but they weren't the big free agent moves.
They weren't going to produce a winner.
Wong, who was a disaster.
They're not going to produce a winner with those moves.
They caught a tough break in losing their number 2 starter. But they have a lot of young pitching. They have pitching.
Dodgers lost the starting pitcher.
Runs.
Dodgers lost the starting pitcher, Urias, the guy that got arrested for beating his girlfriend. He's gone. They never missed a beat. They put a kid in there, and they just said, we're going to keep hitting, we're going to keep winning, and that's just what they did.
Well, again, the Mariners, the Mariners, and one of the players on the team, Cal Raleigh, the catcher, who I've become a big fan of, took him to task on it. He opened his mouth the other day and said, "Wait a minute! If this team doesn't seem to have a desire to win. There's not the desire here is to make money and not to win games." And I got to tell you, he came out after he said that and apologized for it, and I have a little less respect for him for doing that.
Somebody got to him from the front office.
Right. I think that the Mariners have gotten away with a lot over the years that I've been following them. They've hired managers that have been spank boys who agree with what they say, and that's it. They could have had Dusty Baker after Lou Piniella, but no,
he's available now.
They didn't want somebody who who didn't get along, who wasn't a guy that they were going to take out to the golf course and have some laughs with.
You can have laughs
They'd
with
had
Dusty.
enough of that with Lou Piniella.
Yeah.
So, they went and they hired Bob Melvin. And Bob Melvin was a young guy, young manager, had some good ideas, wasn't ready for prime time yet. But by the time he was ready for prime time, by the time he was getting good, boom, they fired him. And they brought in another guy who was a yes guy.
Service?
No, Wakamatsu. And he did a 2-year stint, and he couldn't get anything going. Then they had John McLaren here for a couple of years, and McLaren's a great guy, but I don't know if he's a. They were hoping that McLaren would bring a little bit of the Lou Piniella fire with him, and he didn't. And they made some really horrific free agent moves. I think McLaren was the manager of the team when they had $100 million payroll and lost 100 games. First team in Major League history to do that.
History is for the making. History is for the history makers.
And then you go, and there's a litany of other guys that they brought in, Lloyd McClendon, and you had Mike Hargrove, who was here for a while, who started to get them going in the right direction. It seems that every time they get going in the right direction, something happens. And I know it's easy to say, well, they just missed it by a game or two. But when the pressure was on, when in September, when you had to play your best baseball, after coming off of a scorching August, where they were the best team in Major League Baseball, if not second or third best,
couldn't get arrested.
They couldn't win a game against a division rival. They had it all set up for them perfectly. All you had to do is beat your division rival, the Astros, who you were 9-2 against during the year. You look like a beat team. I just I don't know what it is with the Mariners. Or to be honest with you, the Giants and the Mets, at least the Giants and the Mets have done something to try to make the team better. I mean, I don't always agree that firing the manager is going to be what you need to do. But I don't know. In this case here, you got Scott Service, and he's been there a ton of years and has had really 2 good years.
And you'd have to count this as one of them.
Yeah, because they had a winning record. But when it came down the stretch, he couldn't steer the team in the right direction.
Well, I think that's the Giants' problem. And if you fire the manager 1 week before the season ends, it's a message to the team. And the team went out and lost 2 more to the Dodgers. So that message did not get through. And so the message now to the team is no holds barred, wholesale changes. Don't buy a house, rent.
Yeah, don't buy anything.
We're getting ready to fix this team one way or the other. And it looks like they already tried one way, so now it's time for the other.
Well, it'll be this is going to be a lot of all our teams seem to be in a position of having to do some major thinking and major rebuilding. And I'm not saying that they should just go ahead and get rid of the manager willy-nilly. But, boy, I'll tell you, if I'm the Mariners, man, I'm looking at a lot of facets of this thing and saying it's not right.
But it hasn't been right since I was in Seattle, below those many years ago. There's always an element of the team that's not professional enough to compete. And the front office tolerates it, promulgates it, it makes excuses for it, blames it, and then doesn't fix it.
Well, this is where the Mariners and the Pirates seem to me to be very, very real, very alike, I should say. Is you have front offices that are focused on these teams as businesses. And I'm not saying that people don't want to win in the Mariners front office. I will never take it that far. I think there's people there that genuinely want to win. I think the question becomes, do you know how to win?
Have you ever won? How about that?
Yeah, I mean, do you, the last manager, the last general manager who brought in a consistently winning manager was Woody Woodward.
It's been
Now
some
think about
time.
that. That was 1993 when they brought in Lou Piniella. We're in 2023, and Woody Woodward, the much maligned Woody Woodward,
It's been a
uh,
lifetime since he was there.
was the last guy that brought in winning, consistently winning teams. Him and then Pat Gillick, who was here after Woodward. Since then, they've tried everything and they've gotten nothing. They've gotten one playoff appearance. And yeah, people go as long as they make money, as long as they have these great promotions, as long as they have, keep feeding people the line that, next year and we're developing and with this, they're on a 5-year plan that's in its ninth year.
And plus, look at the shape of the teams that are winning right now. Look at the Dodgers and the Braves. Look at the lineup that they sport. Look at the power in their lineup. Look at the deliverance and the competitive nature of their pitching staff. And look how injuries and problems and legal roadblocks don't stop them. Nothing slows down their winning
Yeah, it's
because they have 5 guys that can hit 30 home runs for starters.
well, again, the Mariners seemed to me to be most successful last year when they were playing the brand of baseball that moved runners over, where everybody wasn't just sitting there waiting to hit a home run, where hitters were patient, they were waiting in the counts, they were moving runners over, they were
And, pro-
stealing
and,
bases, they
and
were playing
productive,
baseball.
being productive.
And I don't I don't I don't know the answer. Because it's not that the Mariners haven't thrown money at it. Now, maybe they haven't thrown enough money at it. Maybe they just haven't found the right people. Maybe they are more concerned about having people that click with the front office than they are having people that have that burning desire to go out and win.
And then there's the downside of that picture because it appears that you could just come up with a formula and build a winning team. I offer you the San Diego Padres in response to that idea. You can build what looks like a winning team on paper and come up with a team that's actually worse than the Giants and more disappointing because of the promise that was there.
Well, you know, it doesn't always work. I mean,
True.
that's one thing that we've learned in observing sports and baseball for how many of these years is that you can go out. It's not just going out and spending money, but it's going out and spending money and scouting talent and knowing talent in the right places and bringing that talent in and creating an atmosphere on a team that says we're here to win.
Not to
And
play, to
accepting
win.
anything less um, is not right. Is not the way it's supposed to be. So uh, there's a culture on clubs, winning clubs. Everybody carries themselves differently. Everybody, people on the club, you just see it. You see it.
They don't come to play, they come to win.
Yeah, they come to win. They show up at the ballpark looking to win every day. And I'm not saying that the Mariners don't do that, but there are periods in a season where teams get down. That's part of the beauty of the 162 game season, is that there are peaks and valleys.
Little
And
slumps.
where your manager earns his money, I always believe, is when the team goes through the slump, the valley. What does the manager do to get them to rise? What psychological things, what tricks does the manager know? How does the manager know to motivate his people, to keep them in and interested and believing that this is just a temporary thing?
One thing that some managers have tried is they start the second string. All the starters sit and have to watch the game, and it drives them crazy.
Yeah,
What do they want? They want a bat in their hand. They want
they
to show
want to
you
play.
that they want to play.
I've only met a couple of players in my life um that didn't want to play baseball every day, be out there every day. I mean, it's ingrained in you when you're a kid. You feel horrible if they don't pick you
Because you
to
take
play on the schoolyard team.
batting practice, infield practice, you warm up, you do the double play routines, you run all your plays, you take bunting practice, and then you sit. That's no way to play baseball.
I, do you see teams that do that before games anymore?
I'd like to.
I, I mean, I don't. I think that's a thing of the past. We were talking about it last week. Is to show up at the ballpark 2 hours beforehand, and you would, watch the players come out and take infield practice. Now maybe they do it the first game of every series, but they don't. It's a lost art.
Well, what's the theory on that, Vinny?
I I don't know. Maybe they're worried that people will get hurt. Maybe they're just they figure they get their practice, they're better shape. I don't know what the theory is. I don't know why teams don't do that anymore. Maybe they spend more time watching videotape of the other team.
That's okay. That's another part of it. But you still have to take batting practice. And I think if you got a successful team that did that, all the other teams would copy it. You think if the Yankees were in first place by 20 games and they blamed it on their infield practice, anybody would say, we're going to start that right now.
Yeah, because it's a business where people copy what people are doing that's successful, like any business.
Sure. Like radio.
If somebody is successful, if you if you have a gas station and you start cleaning windows when people come in for gas, even though it's self-service, and all of a sudden you're selling twice the gas that the guy down the block is, pretty soon the guy down the block is going to have somebody out there cleaning windows too.
Vinny, did you ever clean windows for your dad?
Yes, of course. The trick was to, I mean, when I worked in a gas station, there's two things that happened when you cleaned windows. Number one, you were almost always good for a tip.
Ah.
You were almost always good for a nickel or a dime or a quarter. And I mean, nickel, dime, and a quarter meant something in those days. But you had a pocket full of change after working 8 hours at the pump.
And you get pretty good at cleaning windows too, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was. You had the stick with the squeegee on the end, and yeah, you got good at it, and it was a way to make instant cash, and it was also a way, especially if there was a very attractive woman in the car.
How do you do?
To meet them and talk to them, and so it was it was an interesting yes, no, my father made, my father never owned a self-service gas station. All the gas stations he ever owned were
Full
you had to
service.
go out there and pump the gas. And one thing that he was a stickler on is that you clean people's windows. If it's a fill up, you check their tires and you check their oil. Make sure that you look for stuff because you would sell stuff like that.
Sure, you would.
You'd sell a quart of oil or a fan belt or a top, and at the very least, you'd make yourself some cash. You'd get a tip from a lot of people, not everybody, obviously, but serving people, so making people feel special. Whether you were pumping gas in their car or you were towing their car or whatever you did was how your business was successful.
That's how you get customer service to create a return customer.
Right. If you didn't make people feel special when they came to your business, there were 100 other businesses that they could go to.
There's more than one gas station in New York.
Right. Although it's starting not to look like that, but
Not in Manhattan.
yeah, I think that, and I've always said this, that service will get you more um uh goodwill, customer recognition, repeat customers, whatever. When we were doing the show, I mean, I still believe it in radio. Being personal with your listener
Yeah, it works.
works. There's nothing that works better than when somebody comes to the station, taking 2 minutes out of your day and walking up to the front desk and meeting them and shaking their hand. Yeah, it seems like nothing to you, but to them, it's them
They,
going back to their family or their club or their friends that they hang out and say, "Oh man, I met Michael Knight today, and he was such a nice guy."
he let me right in.
And maybe two or three of his friends turn the radio onto you, and maybe your numbers go up a little bit. Doesn't happen all the time. It's not as automatic in radio as it is in other businesses, but you have to service your customer. It's not just the product that gets them. They can usually get your product in a lot of places. It's the service. It's the feeling of um, bonding with that business or that person or you know that entity that makes you feel a relationship with them.
Now, in a way, this does apply to baseball because you have lots of customers. 50,000 customers every day. That's a lot of customers to deal with. Trying to please them at the same time with good food, good drinks, a good product, a beautiful stadium, sensible parking, access to the stadium. All those things are a factor. But what they come to see is a victory. They want to see a win. And that's harder to plan on a daily basis. So I'm expecting the Giants to say, we were weak up the middle. We didn't have hits when we wanted. We have a very few players that were so essential to our limited victory that they are indispensable. Not that many, maybe five. That means, with the exception of one or two pitchers and one or two fielders, the rest of that team can play for anybody. Could play for the Mariners and not change your win and loss record. Could play for the Milwaukee Brewers and maybe make the team. Could play for the Cincinnati Reds? Probably not. They got a pretty hot lineup. Could be out of baseball. Yeah, there's a factor. Could languish in AAA. Well, the fact is, where we're going to get those players to take their place, and that is the free agent market. And the name mentioned in the Giants site more often than not is Shohei Ohtani, currently having his arm operated on as he had to fix his elbow. Another pitcher with a sore arm. Sound familiar?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. Yeah, he's being mentioned everywhere. He's being mentioned up here. He's being mentioned, wherever wherever fine free agents are being mentioned. He's being mentioned there. And he's the hottest ticket on the market. He's the one that everybody wants to get. Even though he won't be able to pitch in 2024, he will.
He can hit, maybe.
He'll be able to hit, but he won't be able to pitch until 25 is what they're saying. And who knows? Again, I think there's, and I don't think that the Mariners. I don't think that money will be an object for the Mariners when it comes to him, because I think Japan will pony up the money to to get him here. If he wants to come here, here's a guy who's going to be able to write his own ticket out
with his good hand.
Right. Or he could put the pen between his teeth and it'll work.
That'll work.
So he has his choice, and the choice is, well, where do I want to go? Where am I going to get to the World Series?
How about to the playoffs?
Where is my brand going to be able to expand? Where am I going to feel most comfortable? And from what I'm hearing in some of the stuff I read, is that it has to be on the West Coast. He wants to stay here. He doesn't want to go back to the Yankees or the Mets, but everybody's going to make a run at him.
Well, that gives him San Diego, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Seattle, and San Francisco to choose from.
Right. So, you'd have to think that the most likely would be the Dodgers. Second most likely might be San Diego. Third, but maybe he wants to see something different. Maybe he wants to go up to the Bay Area.
Well, right now we can't say who's on our team. What we can say is, here's a list of guys that won't be playing for us next year, who used to play for us.
Right. So that'll be the watched. That'll be the big prize in the offseason. But you have to be real about it and say, okay, I'm going to be one of the teams that's not going to get Ohtani. So what do I do? Where do I need to be improved? The Mariners, we were talking before about Woody Woodward and Lou Piniella. Well, good God, it's the same. It's the same thing now than it was then. Get me a hitter.
Now, Vinny, you need 3 hitters, maybe 4 hitters, and they better be big hitters, and they better be productive, and they better be aggressive.
Well, they
or you can't beat the Braves and the Dodgers.
Yeah. And who is the guy that I'm going to get who, when I start to swoon in September, isn't going to fold up? Isn't going to just sit there on the bench and go, oh my God, what's happening? Is going to take charge and say, we can get through this thing. We can beat these people. Maybe we have to do this. Maybe we have to do that. And I more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that, hey, maybe you have to change the manager. Maybe if you can find somebody, if you can get somebody who you think is going to be better than what you have, not just for the sake of changing the manager, because
it has to be an improvement.
It has to be somebody that you truly feel is going to come in here and win games. But it is interesting to me to see the fact that the Mets, the Giants, all of these teams, they have a one season, bad season, two, and they're done. And the Mariners are, we just signed this guy to a contract last year. To an contract, a 30-year contract extension. I forget what it was, but I was like, not for nothing, but
you can't pitch. You can't hit.
Yeah. I know you guys love him, and I know this, but is he the guy? It kind of reminds me some ways of Dennis Erickson. You remember that Erickson came in here and got the team to the Seahawks to a respectability, got them into the playoffs, got them from being a bad team to being a team that was talked about seriously. And then Mike Holmgren became available. And Erickson, was a good coach, but you didn't 100% feel like he was going to get them to the promised land. That it was going to take more than Dennis Erickson had.
Especially his history.
Whatever it was, he didn't have what it was going to take to get. He took them as far as he could take them. Maybe with Scott's service, you may be in that same position.
What's he going to do next year that he hasn't already done, right?
Well, I guess that he is. I don't know. I don't know what else he can do.
Now, who are you going to hire?
Well, that's the thing.
You got a world of available managers out there. Buck Showalter with the Mariners doesn't seem to be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't. I think Buck is going to go back to the farm. To be honest with you, I don't. I think the Mets were a unique opportunity for him,
and it looked good on the outside.
And it really looked good. It looked good for most of last year. I mean, he really seemed to revive that team. But the reality is that it. I don't know. I don't know who's out there right now and who the best available is. And if you're, who do you get? That's the thing. Is the person you get going to be better than what you have?
And ask him this question. What are you going to do when you manage this team and you're a game and a half out of first place and you start losing and it doesn't look like you can win any games anymore? What are you going to do to that team to revitalize it and get it back on track?
Do you change up what you're doing? Do you stay consistent? Do you go in there screaming? Do you turn over tables? Do you do a Lou?
Did he turn over the food table?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lou, yeah, Lou turned over the food table a few times. Lou had no problem showing his disdain for his players when he needed to. But you know what? Guys would jump through a ring of fire for him. Very few players that didn't like Lou. And that's the way it was. He certainly would make his feelings known to players.
And he had feelings.
Yeah, got him on the good side of some players, on the bad side of some players. So I don't know. It is a nice little thing that happened yesterday. In the Mariner game, final game of the season. Tim Wakefield passed away.
I didn't know that.
Yes, Tim Wakefield, knuckleball pitcher, predominantly with the Pirates, for many years in the 80s, and was known for his knuckleball. And George Kirby, pitching for the Mariners yesterday, paid tribute to Tim Wakefield, who evidently was, a player that he looked up to, that he admired because he had learned this knuckleball, over the course of time. It's a fascinating pitch, and not many people can throw it. And if you can throw it for strike,
You got something.
if you can throw it, then it'll reach the catcher.
That's a good thing too.
And
What
he
did you do?
threw a knuckleball in the game, a couple of them actually, to pay tribute to Wakefield. And I just thought that was a nice gesture.
It always seemed like the correctly thrown knuckleball is sort of pushed rather than tossed.
Yeah, it's you're pushing it out of your hand while your arm is trying to get your velocity. Everybody I think in baseball has tried to throw one.
Of course.
Very few have been successful actually throwing it. So anyway, so this is what you have here. You have, as we have talked about this morning, 3 clubs who want to win. 2 of them, when they didn't win, said goodbye to their manager. One earlier than the end of the season, another one at the end of the season, and
one to be decided.
One to I wouldn't make any bets on Scott Service going anywhere. To be honest with you, just wouldn't. I just don't think that's how the Mariners operate. They keep guys around way longer than they should in many in many cases, and sometimes it works. People forget that there was a big call to fire Lou Piniella after the Mariners had a pretty dreadful 99 season, I believe it was. A lot of people thought that they should have won, and they didn't. And a lot of people were calling for Lou Piniella's head after that season, and there was probably some serious consideration given to it. But they stuck with him, and the next 2 years, it came back and went to the playoffs twice. Almost won the pennant in 2000.
Well, I'm going to let you make the hire for the Mets. Who are you going to get? You're going to get an unknown. You're going to get a kid. You're going to get a AAA. You're going to get a third base coach.
I don't know, Michael. I wonder if who's the guy who they had hired as manager. Was it Edwin Diaz, who they had hired as manager, and then it came out that he was part of the Astros cheating scandal.
Right.
And then they couldn't keep him.
They pulled their offer.
Maybe he deserves. Maybe he's served enough time now. Maybe enough time has gone on that they can look at him again. Other than that, I'm not sure who the next budding star is, because money's not going to be an object. I mean, where do you find the next David Bell? Where is that?
When David Bell got his shot, what had he been doing? Coaching?
Yeah, I think he was coaching somewhere. Yeah, I think he was coaching somewhere, or he was scouting or something. But he he got a shot. He took advantage of it and did a nice job with the. Had a rough season, but did a nice job. So I don't know. I'm gonna I mean, I will be looking at and who's around and who's on everybody's list, because it's different. I mean, do you go with a young manager for the Mariners that identifies with these younger guys a little bit more, because they do have a young baseball club, they got a young pitching staff? So who is the guy they should bring in? And don't give me Ken Griffey Jr. and don't give me Jay Buhner and don't give me Edgar Martinez.
No, sorry.
Let's stay away from there. Let's go find the best guy that's out there, pay him what he needs to be paid.
That is a ham-handed husky solution to the problem.
Well, but that's what you'll hear if you, I'm sure, look at the Twitter feed, Mariners fans' Twitter feed. That's what you're gonna see. Is because he will bring people's memory back to the good old days. Except that the Mariners, while they've had some good old days, haven't had the best good old day that they can have, and that is the day you go into the World Series, followed by the even better day, the day you win the World Series.
Ask them if they have any bunting. What would we need bunting for? That's my question. Do you have any in case you ever need any?
They have the old bunting in the basement. It's in the parking garage of T-Mobile Park. There, it's probably stuffed down in that gated area in the parking garage of T-Mobile Field, where it's been sitting since the Kingdom. They haven't had a chance to break it out because it's a special and different kind of bunting that they use for the World Series than it is for opening day, isn't it?
I should hope so. It should be.
Yeah, I should hope that the World Series has little gold leaf, pleats in there and certain
Maybe
better paper,
maybe an eagle holding a baseball bat.
a baseball bat in one hand and some steroid needles in the other.
Perfect.
So
It's a baseball bat in one hand and an effigy of Jimmy Pearsall in the other claw.
I guess they're not, hands, they're claws. But so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch and to see who. And I got to call up a couple of my baseball friends and see if I can get a little bit of the lowdown on who might be out there, who might be available. Is there a name from uh, either within the organization or within the high minors that might be, somebody who they would seriously look at? Um, I wish it was one of those guys. It'd be kind of nice to have that homegrown star as your manager. It just uh, a lot of times those things just don't work out. Give me somebody who was a catcher.
Wilson.
That's what I want to see.
I was just going to say that Wilson from the history.
Yeah, I don't know if Dan Wilson's the guy for that job. A great guy. I just don't know that he's got the stomach to make the decisions that you have to make as a manager, and piss people off and um, get them to not like you as much as they used to because you're either losing games or you're learning or you made a mistake. And all managers are going to make mistakes. It's a job where your probability of doing something that's going to piss somebody off is going to be pretty real.
And there's somebody with a computer on the bench saying you knew your chance of success there was only 20%.
Well,
You told you that
Mikey,
before you made the move.
you bring up a great point. You just really brought up something that has bothered me, and maybe I'm just an old fogey, and I'm on the tail end of it all. But bring in somebody that knows baseball players, not just that knows a stat sheet. The one thing that I thought about Buck Showalter is that never was a big fan of his, but he seemed to me to be a guy who knew baseball players, knew who was good, knew who had the extra piece that it took to not collapse in September. See, no stats can tell you that. No stats can tell you that Johnny is not going to start wetting his pants on September 2nd.
Poor Johnny.
Yeah. This is, because the pressure is on, and now it's not early anymore. It's late. It's prime time. It's when you got to go. No more of this. No more of the. It's early. We'll make it up on the other end. This, that, the other thing. Every game counts.
Well, that leaves me with the impression that we're not going to get, for the Giants, a Buck Showalter. We're not going to get Bob Melvin. First of all, he's still with San Diego. They haven't cut him loose. Maybe by the time the show's over, he'll be a free man. But I would go for the more revolutionary solution. I would go for young, relatively unexperienced, well schooled, but untested. And give him now that's the manager. Anybody can make up a lineup card. The third base coach can do that for you. But what I want is a lineup of killer's row, murderer's row. If you don't have it, if you don't have the players who can produce, whether they do or not, I can't promise you that, and no one can, Vin. But if they're not there, if they're on some other team, I can guarantee that they'll produce against you. If your search for free agent talent produces guys who can hit 220, that's not what I call a solution. You got to bring in the guns, and you got to develop some of your own. And the Giants have developed a lot of interesting players, and many of them have come up from AAA this year, but no power hitters, guys who can hit, but not for power, not consistently. And that's the name of the game. And I see with disgust the Giants and the Atlanta Braves beating anybody that they come up against in a 3-game series. They can win 2 out of 3 for the rest of their lives with that lineup. And what are you going to do but either fight fire with fire? And I'm not seeing the Giants able to do that yet. They need to make some major changes, and not one, but all across the lineup.
Well,
if the Mets want to get rid of a power hitter, let me know.
One of the best moves the Mets ever made was to promote their AAA manager back in 1984, I think, 5. It was a guy named Davey Johnson.
Davey Johnson knows baseball players.
Who was managing their AAA. I think the club was at Tidewater at that time. And
all in all, he was just a great fit.
Yeah, and they brought him up, and he knew the play. He knew half the players on the roster because they had been at Tidewater. He knew the good and the bad. He knew who not to put the locker next to each other, and he knew who to keep right there. And is that something that could repeat itself somewhere, especially for the Mariners or the Mets or whatever? I think that I think that the Mets also will have a new president of baseball operations. David Stearns, who used to be with the Brewers, I believe, is coming over, and some people have speculated that he's gonna get to Craig Counsell, who is managing the Brewers, and try to get him to come over to the Mets, by throwing a ton of money at him. I don't know if that's the Brewers have done well over the last couple of years. They always seem to be, if they're not there, they're certainly sniffing.
They're in the hunt.
They're a consistent playoff contender. They're in the mix every year, and that's what you want, right? I mean, you want to win it all, but even if you're not going to have somebody who's going to win it all every year, which nobody is gonna, you at least want to feel that you're delivering the possibility, the probability that you'll be playing some October baseball. And a guy like Craig Counsell does that because he knows he has experience. He knows how to run a club. Can you pry him loose from the Brewers? I don't know. I'm not that close enough to the situation where I know. I haven't read up on it as it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I know that Tito is leaving Cleveland. I think
He's,
he's going to retire. I don't think
yes.
that he is going to surface anywhere else.
No, look for health issues. I think he's done.
Yeah, but after a year or two, maybe he gets the itch and he comes back. He's somewhere down the road.
That's what happened to Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, which right now looks like the move of the year, doesn't it?
Yep.
I mean, again, he's somebody who, Boch was just sitting there on the fishing pier, and
In San
Texas
Diego,
Rangers said, "We're not going to dick around with this."
he was down in Mission Beach and just hanging out and said, "What do you guys? What do you propose? Remake our team, Boch."
Yeah, and they were smart enough to call him and see if he'd be interested, and he was smart enough to say yes. And now you look at the Rangers and you think that, wow, a team that you never would have put him together with.
Never.
Never would have. It shocked me when I saw that he was going there as manager. I said, "What's the connection?"
And he looked funny. He looked funny in a uniform. He didn't.
Yeah,
He didn't
it just
belong in a
didn't.
Rangers uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I could always understand the Giants, obviously, and I could always understand the Padres, but I couldn't understand any team really in the American League. But he went there and it's funny. Bosch does not look like a guy that's going to motivate you to do anything.
Somehow he does.
But yet, his teams always seem to be, close to or in the hunt.
Yep, that's a fact. When he was a player too.
Yeah, he really he knows how to push people, the right buttons on people. So it will be interesting. As I say, I don't wish Scott Service any ill will or anything like that. He seems to be a really nice guy, and I think he's at many times I've watched the Mariners, and they've been exciting to watch. But this team has to do something, man. The Mariners have to do something.
When the general manager Zadie fired Kapler, he said it bothered him because they were personal friends. But he's the one that recommended it be done. And it was simple, he said. And I repeat this for people who didn't hear the first part. When we were close to first place and we were required to play our best baseball, we played our worst. And that's something that the organization can't tolerate. And that goes for not just baseball, that goes for any performing unit, whether it be in business or in sports. You meet a challenge with your worst effort, heads have to roll.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be yeah, I mean really when it comes down to it, it all rests on the manager's shoulders, doesn't it?
More so than anybody else.
And it doesn't make the club, the players better, but it does wake them up. And many times it says to players, "Well, we're committed to winning."
Right.
Because if we didn't feel like this manager could take us where we needed to go, so we're going to get another manager.
And we respond to losing by changing things.
Right. And this club is about winning. It's not about putting people in the seats. It's not about giveaways or bobbleheads or all this kind of stuff. It's about getting people in, getting our team to be on top of the standings when the season is over. Something that happened last year for the first time in 20 something, and this year we find ourselves in the same place.
Here's a wake-up call for you. It happened in Marin County over the weekend. Happened yesterday. Three people went swimming at a beach called Wildcat Beach between Bolinas and Point Reyes, and one of them got eaten by a shark. They didn't even find the body. And so the wake-up call is this: there are animals in this world that will eat you if they find you.
Yeah.
If you make yourself available by swimming around and looking like a seal, their favorite food, they will gladly find you and do what they do naturally. And hopefully they will find the body. But right now they've given up the search.
That's boy, that's not a good. It's not a good way to go. No matter how you slice it. I mean, it's but sharks seem to be now. I don't know if this is true or not. I haven't looked at the statistics, but it feels to me like sharks are much more aggressive as of late,
Well, the
as of the
water
last few
around
years.
the water just about everywhere is warmer. So they're changing their swimming patterns and their hunting areas and their habits. And they're hungry. They're big fish. They like to eat.
Yes, yes, they like to. They don't. Um, their mind is eerily similar to mine in the morning. You wake up and you want to eat.
And the funny thing about sharks is it's not like they're a secret. They do they do Shark Week so everybody can see what they look like, how they swim, what they do when they feed, and what they like to eat. And they like to eat seals more than anything else. So if you're
Right. Well, high protein.
swimming around where the seals swim, you are not a swimmer swimming with the seals. You're just a seal waiting for the shark.
Yeah, because the shark has no determination as to what you are until you're well halfway down his throat.
And the shark always says, "What was I supposed to do? It looked like a seal. How was I supposed to know?"
Yeah, you've never seen a shark get arrested. The worst you've seen is when they catch the shark that they think ate the person. They cut the belly open, and if the person falls out or
Voila.
remnants thereof, um, yeah, not a way I'd want to go, man. Not a
No.
way I would want to go at all. Well, our deepest sympathies to the family of that person who wound up, as far as they know, getting eaten by a shark. Yeah, it's just got to be a horrible way to go. What else do we have before we blow out of here for a Monday?
Donald Trump's in court.
Yeah, no, we're gonna. That picture is not gonna go away. That picture is gonna be around for a long time.
Donald Trump will go from court. He goes to court.
He does, and he doesn't look like usually somebody sitting at one of those tables usually has a look of contriteness,
No, he's not prepared for that.
a look of gee, I really don't want to be here.
A look of innocence.
Yeah, he looks like he's holding somebody hostage in a car downstairs. I don't know if he thinks he intimidates people or what, but I mean, to look at him, I mean, even the son of Sam looked kind of like quiet when he went to court. He looked like very contrite, and this guy was knocking people off like it was going out of style. All these people that commit these horrific crimes, when they go to court, they look low key, and I mean, Trump looks like he's going to jump over the table and rush at the judge.
It has something to do with this witch hunt he keeps talking about because it's the greatest one of all time.
Yes,
Again,
yes.
the greatest one of all time.
Try to sell that to the people in Salem.
They knew how to hunt witches. They
Try to
invented it.
sell that to Joan of Arc.
Poor Joan. And she had the Catholics on her side for a while.
Yeah, it's funny they were on her side. They even named schools after her, but boy, they sure didn't help her out much when she was when they were pouring the petrol on the rags.
The priest kept saying, "More wood, more wood."
You never know who your friends are. We have the Seahawks on Monday Night Football tonight
With the Giants?
with the Giants.
Where are they playing it?
In New York. So it'll be interesting to
Giants by 3.
I'm going to say the Seahawks go in there and and pull a victory off. Geno Smith is clicking right now. The Seahawks seem to have their act together. And from what I'm seeing out of the Giants, and what I've, the couple of times I've watched the Giants game, they look like they have a myriad of problems.
They look like they're an insignificant team.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that they look insignificant. They don't look consistent. The Seahawks, I think you know what you're going to get when they show up. It may not be among the elite teams in the league, but it's Geno Smith is a better quarterback, I think, this year than he was last year so far. He was actually good by the numbers last year, and I think they have a couple of exciting young players. So I think that they could go in there and pull off an upset. I look at the Giants a couple of times. I've seen them, and they just look like they get beat on all the time.
Yeah,
or the quarterback throws an interception at the wrong time, or whatever. Now again, subject to change.
So subject to your own usage. Your results may differ.
Yes, your results may differ. Do not watch the Seahawks if you are allergic to the Seahawks.
Don't watch them in a mirror. They appear smaller than they really are.
So that'll be interesting to, the Seahawks on Monday night and Geno on the national stage.
And the return of Peyton and Eli to ESPN2.
Oh, will they be on tonight?
Yes.
It'll
be Eli's old team.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. A guy who's revered in New York. They love him. They love the little brother bit in New York.
Yeah, it works.
It works perfectly for him.
Stop picking on Eli.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see who they march in and out of there tonight. I'll try to watch some of it, or I might even record that and then watch the game and then go back and look at the Peyton and Eli stuff. So it'll be whoever decided to do that, whoever thought that idea up, deserves an award. It's a brilliant show,
and they have great guests.
Yeah, well, that's let's face it. If they call somebody, usually they drop what they're doing and go and hang out with them, right?
They love it, yeah, because you just got to turn on your computer from home and you're in.
Yeah, it's so much easier to get people these days, because you just all they got to do is be near the computer.
I like it.
Or their phone, and they can Zoom on you.
Well,
all right,
man. For the Seahawks, let's hope they win.
Let's hope they win. Let's get them in the winning column and get things moving and grooving. A win in New York is always good for anybody who does it, because you're on the big stage, and if you can make it there, many people say
you can make it
anywhere.
Well, Ben, I'll see you on a Wednesday, and it'll be a wacky Wednesday. What do you say?
It'll be a wacky Wednesday. I'm sure that there'll be more great stuff to talk about. And Mikey, it's been a crazy weekend, and I really looked forward to talking to you this morning and seeing you. And I think I'm even going to look more forward to Wednesday and talking to you. It just always does my heart good to click on that thing and see you there.
Here I am. I'll talk to you Wednesday, Ben.
All right, Mikey. Take care of yourself. See you Wednesday if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. Remember, until then, peace, love, and Manischewitz.
What a wine.
See you. Thank you for listening, everybody.